I solemnly swear that I will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Welcome, everybody, to The Truth About Addiction. I'm Ron. I'm the founder of this company. And today's podcast, we have a lovely gentleman named John Killick. A lot of you people will know John about his colourful past and his escapes and his jail and all that sort of stuff. But the thing I want to focus on today is John Killick today, the author, the human, the guy that actually gives a lot back to people and, in prisons and out of prisons and people from other countries, So, I'm honoured and it's a pleasure to have you on, John. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Ron. It really is a pleasure to be with you today. And the way I see it, I like the approach you're taking. Everybody's got a different approach with their podcast, and I think this is a good approach. It probably will bring out things that others may not get, which is good.
Yeah, mate. As I said, John, we are who we are from our past, but who we are today is not our past.
Now, this is right. See, I sort of feel I've gone back. That I'm the guy I used to be. When I was a kid, I was a pretty good kid. Really, I was a good kid. Never got into trouble. And my mother suicided when I was 17, and I left that day that she died. And within 6 months, mixed up with peers and guys a bit older, and learned how to shoplift, stuff like that. Didn't care. Was pretty bitter about everything, and finished in jail when I was 17, and Long Bay. And you know how tough Long Bay was in the old days, and you had nothing. It was really tough. And I learnt the criminal code, and once you get on that criminal code, it's hard to get away from it, because it's the opposite way of thinking that in many ways that we've got when we live in a normal society. And I feel I'm only back to that guy in the last 10 years. So I think I'm back to that guy that I was, and I feel good for it, and I do try to help others. I try to give back to society. I've done some bad things, there's no doubt about it, and I paid a heavy price, and I've done about 30 years in jail. And I always say to people, I think, that Kenny Rogers thing to gamble, I think that's what's happened with me. I think I broke about even,
Yeah.
I might finish ahead if I keep going the way I'm going,
Yeah, I 100% agree, and I relate to that. Like I always say, if you got the karma wheel out,
Yeah.
I'm going all right. I've done a lot more good than I have bad.
Yeah, you're doing good things too, and it's good that we can give back. There's guys like Russell and you and me, and there's quite a few others. The late Bernie Matthews was doing helping people, and it proves that to people that guys that have got a bad past can come back and turn it around. And that's why I think people need to look at it. There's too many people in society that've got a bit of power and that won't give us second chances to people like us. They sort of scream blue murder, or they're criminals. Why can they put books out, proceeds from crime? Don't realise that maybe the proceeds we're getting from the books is going to help others. And the fact is, I remember when Chopper Reed was, he was a funny guy. He told a lot of fibs in his books, but he was doing well, and they wanted to shut him down. So what they want him to do, go back to doing all the horrible things he used to do. I mean, they don't think it out, do they? They don't think.
No. When I got parole this time, John, back in 2012, now all my life I've been a criminal. I'm a career criminal. I don't deny that. But in the society, I worked as a jeweler in a jewelry company. I've had my own jewelry company since 1985, and I've been working in drug and alcohol since 1981. So I got parole, and they said to me, "You can't go back to the jewelry trade because that's what your smuggling was about, and you can't go back to drug and alcohol." And I said to the parole officer, "Well, what do I go back to? Crime?"
Yeah.
I said, "I don't know anything else."
That's exactly right. Their thinking is it's stilted, and they just stick to a pattern, and they don't want to change, and they just got no foresight, and quite often I find a lot of them have got no empathy at all. They don't really care. Just stick with the rules. I was told when I took Gloria to see Prolos, and he was quite nasty to us. He told her right in front of her. He said, "You're still a criminal. You're on parole." I'd been out for 6, 7 years. And he said, "You're still a criminal. Why you're on parole? You're still a criminal. You can't go anywhere and do anything without asking me." He said, "I'm not going to let you know." And that parole finished in a week's time, and you know, I just after about nearly 3 years, and I feel that well, I know that it was restriction of trade. They wouldn't let me go interstate to sell books and promote books, and I could do university talks at Bond Uni and a few others where I had the office, and they just wouldn't let me go interstate. They said, "No, you can't go. You can't go." And they even stopped me playing in a chess tournament in Canberra when I'd already paid the entry fee and booked a motel in Columbia, so I wasn't even going to live in Canberra. I was just going to cross over to play chess. And they said, "No, you can't do it." And I thought, well, they're certainly not encouraging me to do the right thing,
Yeah.
and people fall over, with the restrictions that they do put on them. And I'm not saying all parolists like that. I've had some good parolists, but then the one that allowed me to go to Canberra, someone higher than him overruled him, So that's up against the red tape. And I just feel that I know that when I put books out and do talks and stuff like that, that a lot of people, most people support it, but there's a small, and they're often the ones that have got a bit of pull and power that resent it. And they scream proceeds from crime and this and that. And it's really probably the most ridiculous rule with literature. And anyone who knows anything about literature realises there's hundreds of authors, famous authors, that have been in jail.
Yeah.
And if they weren't allowed to write those great books,
Yep.
And guys like me and Bernie Matthews and quite a lot of others, Ray Mooney, there's quite a lot of them that write these books. And when we're gone, these books will sit well on the shelves of true crime.
Yep.
Because we tell it the way it was. We're not chopper reads. We don't tell it. We don't fictionalise it. We relate it the way it was and tell how the system used to be and what happened and how the justice system used to operate. And it's so different now. And that's important. And what we've got to say from that. I've had university students come up and tell me, "John, we're just so glad to hear it from the other side." And that's what we really need. We need guys like me and you and Russell Manson and these people getting up there saying how it used to be and what it was really like,
What it was like, what we did about it, and what it's like today. That's the important part, And that's what everybody keeps, as I said, everyone keeps thinking, that they've got to keep punishing us. Wait a minute, that's what got us started.
That's right. That's right.
That's what created us.
It brings out the rebel,
Yeah. It's really funny. See that?
Yeah. What is that?
That's my book.
I thought it looks like it's pretty thick too.
Yeah, man. It's got another 20 years to come.
Yeah, well, there you go. Well, maybe you should think about doing maybe 2 or 3 volumes. I've done the first one I did. I didn't put about the helicopter. I wrote up to 1973, and I left the helicopter out deliberately and wrote about my life story, Gambling for Love. And a pretty famous author, he's dead now, Bob Ellis, he said it'll become a classic. And it is a good book, Gambling for Love. But then I got in and done the big one, The Last Escape, and everyone loves that. And I found that I'm ready for it. I'm going to put a third one out.
Yeah.
I don't. That wasn't about me. That was about other people. And then I done Russell's story. But now I'm going to do a third one, wind it up really, and really say how it is now and what we're doing now, and people like ourselves and what we can do to help. And there's so many. I know so many people. Jeff Morgan's another one. They're just doing so much to help people.
Yeah, 100%, mate, 100%. And you know what? Every person I speak to, and yourself, I had the opportunity to talk at the university the other week, through Mick.
Yeah.
And I spoke, in the Crime and Justice and talked about, my story basically. And I got an email back through the lecturer, CC'd back to me from a copper, an ex-copper.
Yeah.
And he's part of that group. He was on that lecture.
Right.
And he wrote back, "Oh my God," he said, "I was a policeman in South Melbourne in the late 60s, early 70s, when Ron was embarking on his career. He said, we're the same age. He said, and I remember going down to the Painters and Dockers and seeing, crime scenes where people had been shot and all the madness. He said, but it was such a pleasure to hear Ron who he is today.
Yeah, isn't that nice? Yeah, that's great. And coming from an ex-cop too.
Coming from an ex-copper.
Well, I was down there in those days too. They were tough times down there and tough people. And we each city's had its era of
Yep.
we get razor gangs and that, but here in Sydney, 70s and 80s, even early 90s, the shootings and the killings went on, and then Melbourne probably outdone us down there, the things that happened then. But they've had these eras. Guys like you and I, we weren't involved in that sort of stuff. We never got involved in that sort of stuff. And we were able to survive all that, because I think if we had been involved in that, we wouldn't be around anymore. We certainly wouldn't. No, we met so many people, didn't we, that were involved. And I know one of the Painter and Dockers now, and I'm going down to Melbourne in a few weeks. It's 50 years since I was released from Pentridge. 50 years next month.
And 50 years ago, I went to Pentridge.
It's unbelievable, and they're reopening Pentridge early next year, and just part of it for visitors. And HCBS will be one, and I'm going into HCBS from there, and I've done a few recordings, and the cell I used to be in, number 6. I don't know what I'll think when I get there, but the next door to was number 7 was Peter Walker was in there. I remember where they all. Murley was up in number 1, and Stan Tar. All these infamous crimes were all down there in HCBS, and many of them became murderers, and just because when they got there, they got flogged, bashed, and treated like animals. And that's what I'm going to speak about down there. That society's got to learn. We've changed our mentality in Australia from the time we landed here. Way back in 1788, they hanged a guy the first couple of days because he stole some bread and a shirt because he's 21-year-old. They hanged him to set an example. That's the sort of attitude we had. And I tell you what, it hasn't changed much. The punishment thing, punish, punish, punish. When I was down in Pentridge there, and you know about it, they flogged O'Malley, and they did the corporal punishment in 1958. I mean, 10 or 9 times in 1958, still doing corporal punishment. Well, I was breaking rocks down there. I was breaking rocks, in 1970. Can you believe it? Breaking rocks, that's when the riots started and it all stopped. But, I mean, we've still got that attitude of punishment, and it's partly to do because some of the newspapers, which got a big following, hammer it home, just tough on crime. The politicians think it's easy to get in, tough on crime, and you've just got this attitude, and that people hear it and they don't. And I was speaking to people last week about this, intelligent people from both sides, and they agree that, unless we change this attitude we've always had in Australia, it's always going to be this way.
Yeah.
You're going to tighten laws and get tougher on crime. And why are we building jails? You tell me, Ron, why are we building jails instead of hospitals? The people are going to hospitals now, and they're getting there with serious problems, and they're told that, look, I've got to tell you now, we haven't got any hospital beds. I'm serious. This is what they're telling people. And yet, you get in the trouble, they'll find a bed for you in jail. If they haven't got a bed, come back next 6 months, we'll build another jail for you. You know what I mean? We're following America with the private jails. What they were doing in America, they're opening up jails in the middle of it, nowhere, and find a way to fill them, because judges were told, bring them in, don't let them have bail, break their parole. We want the jails filled up, and that's the way it operates.
It's all about control and punishment. It's really funny. Touching on Pentridge, I went to Pentridge in November 1971.
Right, I was still there then.
And I was a boy. I was a kid. I was 17 years of age.
Yeah.
And I was pinched with a bloke called Joe Tonga. I won't say his name. I was pinched with a couple of blokes from the shootout of the coppers. Yeah. And because we were pinched for shooting out of the coppers, you remember the coppers and the screws didn't like each other.
That's true.
Back in the day, I mean, when they bring you in on escort, there was no love lost between them, It was like, give us that piece of shit. He's our piece of shit now. We're going to punish him now. And I went over to the Yoggies because over in B Division, there was a good mate of mine called Charlie Muscat. I don't know if you remember Charlie. He was a bank robber.
Charlie Muscat, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I grew up with him. We were best friends. And I went over to the Yoggies, and I got in trouble for talking to Charlie, who was in B Division. So they put me at the front of A Division breaking rocks as a kid. Yeah, out the front of A Division. They had a big blue stone there, and they made me break rocks out there for 3 days for talking to Charlie walking past.
Breaking rocks, yeah. Okay.
And I remember they told us, this is where you're going. You're going to go to H Division.
Ooh.
And you'll be breaking rocks out there as soon as you get to 18, you little piece of shit.
Yeah.
And when I got sentenced, I went back to Malmesbury Youth Training Centre. So I got out of prison, went back to Malmesbury. I was so fucking happy. I just remember I was so scared.
Should have been there in 17. So you've been there in 17. I've been there in 17. Russell's been in 17. We shouldn't have been there.
No, mate. No.
That a 14-year-old boy in 1958 got shot dead climbing the wall. He got shot him in the back. Did you know that?
No, I didn't, mate. No.
You don't hear much about it, but it's true. And I'm going to do more research about it and find out more about it, because he was in jail for killing his sister. And so they said we had to keep him in jail. But, I mean, that's a bad crime, but obviously he had mental problems. But can you imagine, you knew how tough Penrith was in those days. Can you imagine a 14-year-old boy waking up and finding himself there? Can you wonder why he maybe wanted to escape? So he's just dashed for the wall and climbed up. They shot him in the back, killed him. You know.
I remember there was 2 screws there that entrenched into my brain. One was called Sonny Curl.
Oh yeah, everybody knows Sonny. He's still alive.
Is he really?
Yeah, I've heard he's not going. Still alive, Sonny. Yeah.
And the other one was called McCluskey.
McCluskey. No, I don't think I knew.
Red-headed Scotsman.
Oh, but I can't place it. Can't put a finger in.
He picked me up. I was a 17-year-old boy.
Yeah.
You remember over in remand, you couldn't make a noise, and you only had that piece of wire with the telephone ear you put on your ear.
Yeah.
Listen to the radio, and you could hear the ABC on the Monday nights and on Sunday nights, and your family could send requests in.
Yeah.
People don't know about this stuff, John. We had
Peter Taylor ran it in B Division. He had the radio there. Someone sent a bomb, not when he was there, when another bloke was there, sent a bomb in.
Okay. Yeah, because, like people just think jail is this, wonderful place. We had no windows. We had no newspapers, no reading material, no radios, we had nothing.
That's right.
We woke up at 3:30 in the afternoon and we got out at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Look, it's I remember they had a guy got out of jail. Some idiot got out of jail and rang up John Laws and said that he's having trouble surviving outside, and he misses jail because he used to get a lot of steak and chips and stuff like that. Well, next thing a pensioner rang up and said he had to eat dog food. Well, it just caused a furore. Well, I'm a pensioner. I don't have to eat dog food. You know what I mean? And that's bullshit. And maybe shouldn't be down the tab and smoking and drinking, because that's where to be going. If he's smoking, I can understand him not having any money. But the thing is, it just caused a furore. And for a whole week, people ringing up about we're getting steak and chips in jail. Well, how often did you see steak and chips in jail?
I never seen it. I remember the green curry.
Came for a visit or something like that. They'd put on a special meal,
But do you remember, like, as I said, we had porridge and toast for breakfast.
Yeah.
A cone of sugar and a cone of powdered milk.
That's right. Yeah.
You went out in the yard and you put your fucking powdered milk in a cup and put cold water in it and made yourself a milk.
That's exactly right. But you know what? When I went to Penrith, I couldn't believe they actually gave us porridge for breakfast, because you used to Bay used to get crushed corn there. So that was the only good thing about Penrith. Used to get porridge. That
was the best meal in the jail. That was the best meal, the porridge.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, look, that were the days. Because in those days you couldn't get the buy-ups. And nowadays you got money in jail, particularly in New South Wales. I know that you can get buy-ups and buy a lot of stuff. And most people get money sent in. Some of them, but the best thing they ever did in jail, I think, was stop smoking, because so many guys, I reckon 90% of them were smoking, and then they used to spend their money on smokes.
Yep.
And they were bludgeoned for this and that because they didn't have any money. But once the smoking stopped, it was hard for a while. But now they're all getting their food and their stuff, and they're a lot better off. And they'll probably tell you themselves, look, it's helped them health wise too, because yourself, smokers. It's a one-way ticket, I think, to the grave for I think 90% of people who smoke. Some dodge the bullet.
Yeah.
My smoker, he's bloody in better health than me, but I don't know how the hell he does it.
Yeah, I haven't had a smoke since 1986, mate. So
that's great.
So today you wrote Russell Mansell's story.
Yeah.
Which you released this year, which is a good read. I've read it already.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I've read that already. I've still yet to get your book. I will get it because I love reading stories that I know with some truth in it. That's
well,
right.
I'd love to be able to send them to you, but I've run out of them. I just haven't got any. I could have sold hundreds more, but I just can't get them. Particularly having a fallout with the publisher, I can't get them off her. But you can get them online, Ronnie.
I'll get them, mate. I'll get them. Yeah. So what else are you doing, John?
Well, I've started another book. This will be pretty quick. It's about. I've written a lot of short stories. When I started off in Hastings doing it, got permission. This first guy to get permission to do any writing down there. I had to battle him for a couple of years and got it. Wrote some good stories. Thought I was a good writer, but I wasn't a good writer. I was a good storyteller, but I wasn't a good writer. And the guy who taught me, Ian Moody, was a top Australian poet, and he had to drive taxis. There was no money in it, and he said to me, "Writing's the wrong way to go." He said, "But you've got some good stories." And he cut me to pieces. I thought I'd get an A+. I got a C- for his first story, red marks all through it, and I was shattered,
Yeah.
But I kept at it, and in the end, I was getting A+, and he helped me get a scholarship. When I got out, Gough Whitlam was Prime Minister, and somebody said, "John, apply for a scholarship." Gough's handing out all these, scholarships like candy. You just got to ask, and Gough will give you one. So I did, and I got a scholarship from Gough, and it was only $750, but that was still worth. It was something really nice that you've come out of jail, Hastings, and Gough's give you a bloody scholarship, and so I got quite a few stories published. One of them went overseas, and an interesting one called The Perfect Alibi, because it was later used against me in a trial where that I lost. The only one I've never done, and I went down on it because Roger Rogerson came over and verbal me.
Yeah,
and, it's an incredible story. It's known as the Perfect Alibi case. I won it in the High Court of Australia later, but some of them stories are good. They're outdated, but some of them are. I put a lot of thought because I had a lot of thought, down in Hastings and had a lot of time to think, and so some of the stories are good. Some of them aren't so good. Later I've done a few modern ones. There's a few more I'm writing, and I'm just going to put out a book of short stories. I'll have it out by the end of the year, I reckon, or maybe January or February, so that'll be good. That'll be my fifth book, and then I'm going to put out a really rip into the system book that I'm really going to lay it on the line because I'll be off parole and I'm just going to tell it really the way it was. In The Last Escape, I told it to a degree, but I had to pull punches a bit. And this time I'm really going to lay it on the line. And I'll be talking to guys like you again for any thing you might want to have to say about it, if you don't mind, because it's going to be a good book. It is going to be a good book. Yeah. The other thing I'm doing is I used to get up at 4 a.m, go up to Rose Meadow, and for the first few years I was out and help train kids. We used to go around to their homes, pick them up. Some of them come from homes they didn't get any breakfast or anything, and we'd take them down. And Dave Bell is just a great guy. For 20 years he's been helping kids and families that have got nothing, and they collect all the food and that from all the supermarkets, and they hand out all these parcels a couple of times a week for about $1 a bag, and it's just incredible what they do. And they had access to a hall, and we went there and we'd pick those kids up, train them, put them through maybe boxing, running, this, that, whatever they wanted to do. And then we had people that from the church, a lot of islanders that had their own church, used to make some incredible breakfasts for them. And I'd lecture some of these kids and talk to them, and they were all interested. But what I realised was that I didn't see them very often, and although they listen to you, they get back with their peers, and it's the peer pressure that gets them into trouble. They need mentors, and they need and the government won't fund Dave. They won't fund him. They fund other things, but he's been going 20 years doing this great job, and they don't fund him, and they find it very hard. The money's coming out of their own pocket, even for petrol. You know what I mean, to do these things, and I've been doing it for so long. The guy deserves a medal, in my opinion. So what I did when I couldn't keep going there from here, so far away, that what I did, I started mentoring some kids overseas. So the first three I did were they were backward kids. And I used to talk to them on WhatsApp at night time. We used to do singing and dancing and had them dance, and they used to really love it. And they've grown quite big now, some of them, particularly the oldest girl, and they're doing well. And I helped them financially for quite a while, and helped financially the Philippines. And there's a great story to the Philippines. There's about 3 or 4 families I help out. $50 over there is the equivalent. You know, that feeds a family for a week in the Philippines. Everything's different over there.
Yep.
And it's just so great to see them do well, going to school dressed and stuff like that, or got to school things they can buy, books and stuff like that. And the one girl, the main one that I've been helping, when I sent her, it goes back a bit. The first book I did, Gambling for Love, I sent it to her. I knew she wouldn't be able to read it, but she wanted it, so I sent it. And she put it up on Facebook and said, by Australia's greatest writer, John Killick, Gambling for Love. And she's only little and she's got this book. And everybody loved it. Every now and again I put it up. It comes up a year ago, so I put it up. But what happened there, I helped her quite a bit. And I got into trouble about 3 years ago. My son was here from China, and I don't know how it happened or what happened, but we went away for that chess tournament that I wasn't allowed to play in, and I had to come back. But we'd paid for the hotel, so we stayed there 3 days. We came back, and we had black ink all over the carpet. I don't know what happened, but Senator, he didn't know how it happened, and so I just mentioned it to my mate, and my mate had plenty of money, so I'll get you a new carpet. Well, he was getting these things illegally, and credit cards. So we said on the phone, they had him bugged. And they heard on the phone that took me to a shop and bought me this carpet. And so I picked it up, put it over my shoulder. Well, he gets arrested about 2 weeks later, and they run in here with a raptor squad. About 8 of them. They were here for 8 hours, and they really put us through the grill. And then the cops fed it to they wanted a bit of publicity. They fed it to the media that I was a 5th member of a multi-million-dollar fraud ring, because apparently there was quite a bit of money involved with these credit cards. And anyway, I went to court over it, got bail, and they nearly pulled my parole over it, but I said, well, look, I said, what have I done? I've got a carpet, I've got a carpet. And anyway, they said, well, we'll see what happens in court. I went to court. I'm telling this because it's interesting how it works. And I got reference from all the work I was doing up at, Rose Meadow and whatnot, and references from a couple of professors and stuff where I'd done university talks, and saying that I'd help people here and there. And they were good references, but she said, she was a pretty tough magistrate. She said, I formed an opinion about you, she said, and these references, I see them every day, professional references, she said, and people seem to be able to get them. She said, but what's changed my mind about you? And she had a letter from this girl in the Philippines, this little girl from the Philippines, and it was written in her own handwriting, and it said, he is like a father to me. He's helped me with my schooling, and he's helped me with this, and, spelling mistakes and all that. And when I get a boyfriend, and if I have trouble, I ask him, and he helps me with advice about my boyfriends.
No.
And she just said, this is a genuine letter, and it's changed my whole mind about you. she said, "But if I see you in the next 2 years, bring a toothbrush."
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
But it's a good story, isn't it, about the kid?
It's a
I
beautiful
mean,
story.
yeah, and all those professional references didn't mean anything to her.
Yeah, yeah,
But the one she knew was genuine, written by herself, not prompted, just wrote what she felt.
yeah. That's
And people sometimes you can tell when it comes from the heart. That's more important than all the brilliant stuff you might be able to write about somebody.
yeah. But that's testimony of your heart.
Yeah, thanks.
You know, it is. It's the truth. That's testimony of your heart, John. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you talk to anybody that I know in the last few years have talked about you, all say the same thing. He's a gentleman, beautiful guy, good heart, gives a lot more than he takes, you know, blah, blah, blah. And you know what, mate? That's the gift of experience. People
Yeah,
can't buy this shit. The shit that you're teaching can't be bought. It can't be taught in a university, you know. And the
no,
sad part is, you know, we had to go through the lifestyle we lived and all that sort of stuff. I'm not justifying it, but to become who we are today, we have to have been the person we were before.
yeah, definitely. I had a chip on my shoulder as a young guy, and you've got to be ruthless to run in robbing banks.
Yeah.
You've got to be ruthless. And although I didn't think that I was hurting anyone, and I always said it's me against the banks because they foreclosed on our house, and although I hated banks, and you've seen the Royal Commission of Banks, some of those banks were charging dead people for insurance. I mean, it's just unbelievable what they've done. But the thing is that, and I accepted working with psychologists and doing the course that I've done, and I've accepted and trying to get it across to others, young guys, that when you're running into one of these places with a gun, doesn't matter whether it's a bloody milk bar or a bank, what you're doing, you're putting people through trauma because you know they're facing someone. You're not up against the institution. The bank doesn't exist. It exists, but it's not a human being. It's got no feelings. You're not hitting at the bank, you're hitting at the people that are behind the counter, you're hitting at the customers. And although 9 out of 10 probably recover okay, that 1 in 10 you may have done a lot of damage to that person. And you've got to accept that I could never understand when I was younger why the armed robbers got such heavy sentences, which we always got. But now I do accept that armed robbery can do a lot of damage and you've got a lot of victims. I'll never be able to understand why, and I still don't understand why armed robbers got maybe 4 times longer than pedophiles, because when you work out the damage that's done mentally to someone winning a bank, and you can do damage, there's no doubt, to someone who's, and God knows how many victims have been traumatised and had done to them what they've had done to them, their whole lives are destroyed. And yet the judiciary never even seen it that way, did they?
And John, touching on that, I've worked in drug and alcohol for the last 41 years. Do you know how many kids have talked to me about the trauma of being molested?
Yeah.
How many people have talked to me about the trauma of being armed robbed?
None.
None. You know what I mean?
I know. Yeah.
You know, don't get me wrong, in the years, there's been a couple of blokes, you know, oh, yeah, they ran in and stuck me up when I was selling gear. I was a drug dealer and they ripped me off. Okay, I used to do that sort of stuff too. And okay, fair, this trauma and everything else, but that's, you know, the molestation, the child abuse, the physical abuse.
There's no comparison. Yeah. No, look, I accept that. And I know. And, we both know people that have been molested. And what it's done to them up there, they're never going to get over it. It doesn't matter how successful they might become in life. Some of them, they're never going to get over what's happened. And that's the damage that's done to them. And there's no excuses for it. And the people that do it are manipulative and they're cunning and they get away with for decades and decades at times. A lot of them are dead and never get punished. And it's just, it's outrageous. I will say that since the Royal Commission that they've been forced to come down on this, I've noticed a lot of the sentences are heavier now. And they are, a lot of them are scurrying like rats behind cover, but the thing is, the damage has been done to multiple thousands, and it's not just in Australia; it's right around the world. It doesn't matter, and we know. I don't like knocking any institution, but we know that the bloody church was one of the worst offenders. And the way they covered up, they were worried about the reputation of the church than what happened to the victims, and that's a fact, and we know that's true.
No, look, like we know that, I went through the boys' homes, I went through Tirana, I went through Malmesbury, I seen what happened there. I was pretty lucky, in the house, there's molestation going on in, most of the kids' houses in the poor area that I grew up in. And as you said, the only way I justified being a drug dealer because I was a drug dealer. So I could justify drug dealers and drug smuggling. So my mentality, this is the way I think of it. The only way I could justify child molestation would be if I was a child molester.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right, and I think and I will never ever judge any group and categorise a group because we're all different.
Yep.
But it's been proven that some people in the judiciary have learning stores that pedophilia, and that's been proven too, and that's a worry. That's a worry, and it might explain why a lot of these pedophiles got very light sentences, and we do know that the police did cover up for someone because that judge that committed suicide, he was never convicted, and because he took his own life, but it came out in the Royal Commission what he'd been doing, and the police knew what he'd been doing, but they had him on side. So if you went up there for robbing a bank, they'd just say to this guy, he was a very hard judge, give this guy 14 years, and he had to do it, otherwise it'd expose him. So they didn't want to play. You know what I mean? And that's dangerous. That's a threat to the very system itself when those sort of things happen. And funny enough, sex itself has always been a big threat in any system, whether it's political or judicial, because the threat of being exposed makes people very vulnerable. Very vulnerable.
Yep.
Even people in high places having affairs. Look what happened to Clinton.
Yep.
Yeah, look at that. Yeah.
So, Andrew.
Yeah.
That all that stuff. Look, it goes back to the beginning of time that there's always been that pedophilia, and it's also, to me, it's also been a judgment of pointing the finger and saying the thieves are worse than us. The crooks are worse than us, and I know myself. I can't change the system, but I can change myself, and that's what I've been doing for the last 20 years.
Yeah,
last 40 years, but the last 20 years, I've actually got a lot better at it because I was still a crim up till 20 years ago.
Yeah, and it's just I've heard nothing but good reports, man. That's the truth,
Yeah, mate. I don't pretend that I was a good bloke, and I know I was a criminal, and I know that I was born into a criminal family.
Yeah.
I went to Pentridge 17 years of age. You get hardened.
Yeah, you do, and you've changed around. Which it's the same old story. You, me, Russell all went into 17. Look what happened to us.
Yeah,
and we all went into tough jails. You went into Pentridge. I went into bloody Long Bay, and he went to Long Bay. It's they're two of the toughest jails in Australia's history, Long Bay and Pentridge.
Yeah, and when I went back to jail in 2002, John.
Yeah.
And I'd been out of jail for 20 years. I hadn't been convicted of a crime for 20 years. And I went back, and God, the system had changed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's changed.
Horrific. The drugs in the jails these days.
Yeah.
When I first went to jail, there was a bit of code of ethics. There was some sort of honour amongst thieves, and there was rules. You didn't hurt the people's family, and if you were dirty,
that's right.
You didn't shoot them at their house. And
there's home invasions were a no-no, weren't they? I mean, it just wasn't on. Your home was your kingdom, and it was sacrosanct.
Yeah.
And you knew that. You knew you were safe in your home. But even if you're a baddie, the baddies weren't going to come for you at your home, were they? And you knew that. And that's all changed. You're not safe anywhere now.
No, mate, you're not safe with your kids in your car.
No. Well, look at that too.
Yeah.
How many kids have been shot?
Yeah, you're not safe with your kids in your cars anymore. But the nice part is for us that we're out of that rotten world.
Well, it is. Yeah, and I try and stay right away from it. You know, I'll be honest with you. I get calls 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. in the morning. Or a messenger from people that are on ice and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I try and advise them, but the thing is, it doesn't matter how much you talk to them, and unless they can get off it, and they just don't get off it. They're hooked, and this is why I can't believe the government's closed down a lot of rehabs and taken funding off a lot of these places that were self-funded and were helping these people. You know, it's harder and harder to get into rehab now. You know, not everybody can get in, and that's the only way it's going to get them out of it if they're sincere. If you go to these rehabs and get help, you know, because if you just get turned, imagine if I've seen so many guys. When I went to Narra before I finally got out up there, and I saw them coming in. I probably saw one young guy probably come in 3 or 4 times while I was there.
Yeah.
And he was happy. He'd come through the gates, mate, yeah, giving each other a hug. Let's go down and have a, you know what. And he was finding it easier in jail than he was outside where he had to bloody battle.
Yep.
And some of these kids come from third generation welfare families.
Yeah.
So they've never worked. A lot of them left school and that they can't read or write. And you'd be surprised how many can't read or write in the system. Now, what chance have you got with a record, no job history, can't read or write, got tattoos and probably on drugs? Who's going to employ you?
Yeah.
Who's going to employ you? You know, some employers, I've read the other day, last week, some employers won't even employ guys with tattoos, and everybody's got tattoos. Now, girls have got them, everybody gets them, but some employers are so sticklers for you know, tradition that so those kids have got no chance, and that's not helping society either. That's not helping in the long run. They're people that are going to rely on the system to pull them through for the rest of their lives instead of them helping the system. You know,
100%.
yeah. So what's the system do about it? Nothing. Now, if I was a governor of a jail, and as soon as people are coming in, I would say to reception, here, put them in a room, each one, and I don't care if they're 40 years old, give them a slip of paper, and I want to write half a page about their life. Well, they'll make excuses, they're sick, they're this, that, but some of them can't do it. And those, we're not worried about going to work or doing anything else. He's going to school and he's going to learn read and write. Yeah. And you know what that guy wouldn't know himself once he learns to read and write, you know. That's just simple little thing like that. You know, instead of putting him down there and getting him to fold bloody sheets or do this or that, you know.
Well, you know, the old days, your cell was immaculate. Your sheets had to be folded. Your bed had to be folded.
Yeah.
Everything had to be perfect. Your pillow had to be sitting there, the lines that way, your sheets that way.
Yeah.
These days, you walk into the kids' cells, they're fucking shitholes.
Oh,
on the floor. Yeah. No one cares anymore. There's no more principles. There's no more discipline themselves.
Well, that's right. In H Division, they used to come around with a bloody white glove and rub it down looking for dust on the windowsill. Dust. I mean, you know.
In a joint that had no glass.
That's right. Yeah.
So just touched on something quickly, Johnny. You've never taken drugs in your life?
Never, mate. Bloke gave me some LSD at Long Bay in 80, when was it? 86. And I took it. It talked me in. I didn't want to, but he gave it to me, and he said, just try it once. And I got it in. At first, I was doing all this flashing and all that, and I thought, I sat down and started writing, and I realised that I could write the greatest novel ever written. You know, I could see so much that I thought, you know, I just know it all. I know everything. You know? But then I started growing. I was getting really big, and I was screaming out. I thought I was going to get squashed in the cell. I went out the next day and said, don't you ever even think about giving me that stuff again. Yeah. And that's the only drugs I've ever had, you know.
Did you read the novel back after you'd written it?
Couldn't get back to that. But I was thinking, really, what it was doing is destroying thousands of my cells, brain cells. That's what it was doing.
Yeah, of course, mate.
Now, I saw a guy on LSD. He was taking it in '63, and I ran into him about 5 years later or something. And he was a shell. He was a brain dead up at King's Cross.
Yeah.
He'd aged 20 years, and he didn't know what day it was. You know, and it really that LSD back in those days was really powerful stuff. You know,
Yeah.
and
I didn't like it, mate. Didn't like it.
well, I tried pot a couple of times. Don't like it. You know, I'm an adrenaline guy. You know, I step on a racetrack. I used to, and you know, I was high on a thing, and
That was your go, the gambling, wasn't it?
yeah, and I'd put a big bet on, and on a horse, all or nothing to win. Never mind the place, and
Yeah, on the nose.
Yeah, thundering down the straight with another horse. Went over the line like to give it a heart's going like that, you know, and if it wins, you got 10 grand. If it loses, you're walking home. I mean, that were the sort of days I had, and so that's why I finished up robbing banks in the end, because you know, I just was a heavy bettor, and I remember there in '66 I was in a tab betting about $400 a race, and that's a lot of money in those days.
A lot of money.
These kids were there, and they said, "Oh, geez, you know, we admire you." They were watching me bet, these kids. And I gave them a lesson. I said, "Look, gambling's no good," and I was winning too. I was winning there. They didn't take any notice. They were only kids. But, you know, it was something that really had me hooked in, and I had to work on it. I did a course on gambling. I still like to have a bet on a football, you know, $20. Go down to the pub and watch a game for 2 hours. It costs you $20. And if it loses, well, it's $20. You know, it's like a $20 for entertainment. If it wins, well, I've won $20 as well as had the entertainment. So you can't really lose. You can't really lose like that, you know. And
like going to the movies.
Yeah, that's right.
you might get a refund on the way out.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, some of the movies they should give you refunds too. Yeah. You got to go and see Elvis, though. Elvis is good.
Good show. I've been told it's a good show.
Yeah, I wasn't going to go and see it, but it's totally different to what you think it is. You know?
Yeah, my missus will get to see it. We get to get a babysitter because I don't know how it happened, but I've got little kids too. I've got a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old.
Congratulations, Ron. That's great.
I told her not to bath after me. I said to her, "Don't get in that bath water."
Yeah.
She's got in there. She's had 2 kids. She's done it twice now.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah. That's what I keep telling everybody, you know. My other daughters are 40 this year. My twin daughters, they're 40 this year.
Unbelievable. There you go. Eh?
And one's a nurse, runs a drug detox. Wow. And the other one's a nanny. She nannies for all the judges and the fucking QCs.
Wow.
So that's that's the gift. That's the gift of me getting my act together.
It is. Yeah. And my son's 46. He teaches in China. He's been teaching over there for 20 years. So.
Yeah, right. Nice. And you know, that's, you know, I always say, you know, drug addiction ran in my family until it ran into me. Yeah.
No, that's a good way of putting it. But the thing is, it's a horrible thing, and it's you know, even doctors and that. There are a lot of doctors and that get addicted on heroin and stuff, but you don't realise it because they know they don't mix with all the shit that gets mixed, and so they survive. But they're still addicted to heroin. It's come out later, you know, and stuff like that. And yeah, you know, a lot of rich people. I know a lot of rich people over in the north side. They're into cocaine. They haven't got any nose left, just about the membranes. You know, they've sort of, and people are people, and we're weak. We give in to temptation, and it's. I think that you know, I know that if I become a heavy gambler again, it'll destroy me. You know, so I know I can't do it. You know.
Yeah, no, mate. Well, I agree with what you said, but you know, our mind has become our own worst enemy.
Yeah.
People trying to escape themselves through drugs or gambling or sex or whatever it does. It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
You just got to fucking man up, face up, and get up.
Yeah. Well, this is it. And there's too many now that give up, and it's got a lot to do. Since this COVID's come, a lot of people have got depressed, and it's brought a lot of people down. And you know, and COVID's real. You got a lot of doubters. COVID's real. I know people got very sick. And you look at America. I always remember in America when it first started, the body bags out in the street in New York, the nurses and doctors crying they didn't have enough respirator. People were dying, and people can say, "Well, it's the flu, it's this, it's that," but believe me, the COVID, particularly when it first came, was heavy and real, and I think they've lost 1 million people. Now, you know, you can say, "Oh, some of it's not COVID," but whatever it is, I've got friends who've got COVID. They've been sick for bloody weeks. It's long-term COVID, you know, and they haven't gone back to work.
Yeah.
I had it once, and it's a lot less, this latest COVID, but it still knocked me about for a day and a half. I really had it really bad. And I just think that we're crazy if we don't take note of these things. You know, I know there are a lot of skeptics, but I think we're living in a world now where, you know, I worry about germ warfare. I just think that's we're open to attack on germ warfare.
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you just never know what's going to be released into society.
You know, I'm like you, John. Look, I'm 68. What age are you now, John?
Yeah, I hate to admit it, but I'm 80 years old.
I thought you were 80. Yeah. You know, like we've been around a couple of months. You know what I mean? And I've never seen anything like this in my lifetime.
No.
You know, that's the truth. I've never seen anything like this in my lifetime.
No.
So you can piss at me, tell me it's raining, but the reality is, I've never seen it in my 68 years. I've never seen this flu come through and kill people. I've never seen body bags out the front.
Well, when was the last time they wouldn't let you into a bank if you didn't wear a mask? And that's what happened. And that's what happened, buddy, when it started.
Yeah.
And I remember I went in the bank. I put $200 in the bank. They got a receipt for $2 in the ATM, and so I went and seen the manager, and I had the mask on. He didn't have a mask. We went into his office. They brought in bloody, because they realised a mistake. You know, I've been robbed by the bank.
Yep.
So the girl brought me in coffee and a biscuit, and I'm there. So I've taken my mask off, and he's running around without a mask. You know, and I thought the reality of this, if this had happened 3 years ago, you just wouldn't believe it, that a guy, an ex-bank robber, has walked into a bank wearing a mask, complaining he's been robbed by the bank. And the bank manager apologises to him, takes him in, gives him a cup of tea and a biscuit.
Yeah, I laugh. I said, where was the COVID when I needed it? I couldn't go into a bank with a mask on fucking 20 years ago.
That's right. I mean, yeah. You'd even have police telling you, bashing people because they weren't wearing masks.
Yeah,
in Victoria, you know.
That's crazy, mate. It's
And
crazy.
it's just, I mean, it's the whole world was turned on its head, wasn't it?
Our world has changed so much, John. You know, it's changed so much, and it's in some ways, you know, I worry about my grandchildren and that, and what will be in another 20. But the reality is, mate, you know, our grandparents probably worried what the world was going to be like in another 50 years, and their grandparents probably worried. I don't know if we've got evolution or revolution.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because, you know, my father grew up during a depression, and believe me, it was tough in those days. People didn't have, you know, these kids today, really, you know, I'm talking about kids from families that even get welfare. I mean, most of them have got mobile phones.
Yeah.
And they got nearly everything. They're really great at technology. They can switch movies on here, download this, download that. And I mean, you go back to when I was a kid, we never had any. We'd go out and play after school. That was it. We'd go out and play, go and you know, kick a football around, play a bit of cricket, or have a game of tennis or something, or go for a walk, chat. But I mean, you know, we were healthy in those days. Too many kids now are sitting down on their computers and on their games and all that, and you can see they're just totally out of condition. They're walking down railway steps. You know, you've got to get out of their way because they can't see where they're going. I'm talking about girls as well as guys.
Yeah.
You know, I saw a video. It was supposed to be funny, but it wasn't really funny, about over in China where people walking. One bloke was walking along, fell down a manhole. He's looking. I mean, you know, you get you get in a train now. You're in the train, and you have a look around, and somebody can be getting murdered.
Yeah.
and they've got their headphones on and their thing, they wouldn't know about it. And the police would come and say, well, what happened? They wouldn't be able to tell you.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
They wouldn't be able to tell you.
You know, as I said, mate, I've got little kids and I've got to say to them all the time, when we're at the table, there's no iPads.
Yeah. Isn't that a joke? You've got to do that, yeah.
And they blow up. They blow up. Like, Dad, I go, listen, I just told you, no iPads.
Yeah, good. Because there's no longer any conversation. The dinner table used to be where people got together.
We
At
spoke.
least you knew you got together for dinner and you have a bit of a chat and what'd you do today, etc. No, all that's gone. All that's gone.
Every Friday night we had fish and chips. We went to Grandma's house.
So, yeah, similar to me. Yeah, we come from the same sort of background. Yeah.
You know, my family, my 40-year-old daughters, every Christmas they come here. All my kids come to my place. You know, I'm still really old school.
Yeah, well, you're traditional. That tradition, that's dying hard. It's dying hard. And it's, you know, you're right. And I go back even to when, I don't know, you might remember this, but when I was a kid, Christmas pudding used to have threepences
in them. The
remember that?
Yeah, mate. Yeah. Yeah. We had the threepences, and my grandma would always load mine up because I was the favourite, you know? I'd get a few more. Don't swallow that. Don't swallow that.
Yeah. They were the days.
You know, people laugh when I talk about, you know, because my old man was a gambler. So we had bread and dripping one day.
Yeah.
And then we had prawns the next day.
Yeah.
Depends on what
bread and dripping. Now, you know, you wouldn't believe it because dripping's supposed to be bad for you, but you and I had bread and dripping. I grew up on
it with pepper on it.
I haven't got high cholesterol.
Yeah.
You know? So how come?
I got bread and dripping.
Yeah.
Bread and milk for breakfast.
Yeah.
Bread and butter pudding for dessert. Everything was bread because the bread would go 24 hours.
Pudding. You know, I made a bread and butter pudding yesterday. A beauty.
Did you? You haven't had one of them for a long time, yeah.
Oh, look, I make really good ones. Rocky loves it too.
Yeah.
He loves it. Here he is now.
But
Gloria, how was that bread and butter pudding I made yesterday?
Sensational.
Yeah, see.
That's his signature dish.
That's his signature dish. Good on him. Yeah, mate. We've lived the lives, but, you know, as I said, I haven't really touched much on the prison. I know you've been to prison in Victoria. You've been to prison in New South Wales. Did you do a leg up here in Queensland?
Yeah, I escaped up there.
Oh, that's right. Okay, escaped from Queensland.
The lady rang me up the other day, actually, and hadn't seen her for 29 years. And I'd done a podcast with Macca, and we're doing 3 podcasts, and I said, we'll talk about that escape. And she rang me the other day and asked me to try and sort of make sure I don't let people know who it is, because she's living a really good life there. And you realise these things. You know, these people have got different lives now. You know, and when we talk about the past, you know, Lucy in particular had to get away from it all. She couldn't handle it. She got with the church.
Yep.
And you know, a lot of people just don't want to know about it anymore. I don't mind it. I talk about it and tell it the way it was. I want people to know the way it was, and I want people to know that it's got to be changed. The system's got to be changed. If you don't want people like me when I was younger running around, then you've got to help to change the system. You don't throw them in jail at 17 and brutalise them. You don't take people down to H division when they get there and bash them, strip them off and bash them senseless and terrorise them. And you know, and so many people went to H division who later become murderers. And that you know, so many people were brutalised when they went to Tamworth boys' homes. I spoke to Billy Monday and people like him and bloody Nettie Smith who went there and got brutalised and they became murderers. You know?
Yeah, 100%.
And there were so many of them. McCafferty's another one. There just were so many of them that went there. And, you know, the proof's in the pudding. And they even put on a show on ABC about Tamworth, the school for killers. And the 38 murders, I think it is, might be 36, are actually connected to people who went to Tamworth. How does that work out?
I was in Tirana in Victoria, and blokes used to come back from Tamworth and say to us, mate, you don't want to go there.
Yeah,
mate,
yeah.
Mount Penang in Tamworth, they go, mate, you don't want to go there.
Well, Mount Penang was bad, but if you played up there, you went to bloody Tamworth, which was worse.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you have a look at Flannery, Chris Flannery.
Yeah, I knew Chris. Yeah.
yeah, he was brutalised as a kid, and he was absolutely brutalised.
Yep.
And I know people that knew him as a kid, and he became what he was through the system.
Yeah.
And the system's got a lot to answer for. The people that run the show turned a blind eye, knew it was going on, did nothing. They're the ones I'd like to see brought to book. They're the ones that never they go on to live decent, respectable lives, respectable people, and yet they knew that the people under them were brutalising and doing these terrible things.
Mate, there's some horrific stuff. Like Grindley was the governor when you were there.
Grindley was all right with me. I was in a siege there, and what happened? I had to hit a prison officer over the head with an iron bar.
I remember that.
Yeah, and that was 68.
Yeah, I remember reading the story.
68, yeah, and what happened is we had a siege there all night. They brought in 16 squad loads of SWAT team. The whole works was there. Deputy Commissioner of Police was there, and it was a nightmare. I aged a lot that night, and we had a siege there. And what happened is Greenley was on a loudspeaker, and I knew that everyone was listening to him. 1,000 cribs could hear him, and he had a reputation. If he did a deal, that he'd keep it. He'd keep man of word, and I knew that he would keep his word. If I could get him to say his word, and 1,000 people listening, that he'd keep it. And I got him to say on the loudspeaker that if we came down, we would not be bashed in Hastings because they would have killed us, And secondly, that it'd be kept in low court. He did it. Well, the Screws nearly went out on strike. They were going to go on strike because we kept in low court and got 18 months for it. Now, the fact is, the only reason they didn't go on strike is because they were too gutless to go about their pay. Now, that's what it got down to. That's the only thing that stopped it, And Grindley kept his word. He used to come down and ask us how we were. So in that respect, I've got to say, but he got payback from me. I got in a situation. We had the riots down there, and they lost control. Guys were flooding their cells and stuff, going out, wouldn't obey orders, wouldn't break right, and they lost total control. And Grindley came down. Bottom came down. A bloke called Bottom. They laughed him out and spat him and everything, and through the doors and pissed him off because he's a hardliner. And he went back. He wanted to bash everybody, but they'd stopped the bash so he can negotiate. And Grindley came down, and they were singing out. Stan Taylor singing out, "Why would we believe you?" And Grindley said in front of everybody, he said, "Let's ask John Killick if I'm a man of my word." Now here we are in the worst riot in country's history, and I've got the governor asking me for a reference. Can you believe it? Now, what am I going to say? So I sang out, well, I got to say that he kept his word. What else am I going to say?
Yeah.
And that allowed him to negotiate. They finished up negotiating. But I mean, fancy having to give the governor a reference in the middle of a riot, And
yeah, it's so funny. No, mate. Look, you've come a long way, John. I love it, mate. I know I haven't touched on much of the crime but you know what, mate? That's not the part that impresses me anymore. The part that impresses me, what you do today, and the human being you've become.
I feel a lot better about what I do today. I didn't feel too good about hitting the screw into an iron bar, but they did flog me, nearly killed me 2 years earlier when I got there, and that's what motivated me was the uniform against us.
100%. It was always the uniform.
Yeah, I'm going to get out. All that's stopping me is a blue uniform with a guy with a gun. I'm going to hit him and I'm going to take his gun. That was my attitude,
Yeah. There was nothing personal. It was business.
Oh, I said to him later. He came around. I was down Hastings, and he was a nice bloke. He's one of the nice screws. That's the bad part about it. Now, not bad. His name was DeBoer, and he came through, and I was down in the yard, the labour yard, and he was walking up on a tower there, and catwalk. He said he was Dutch. He said, "Killick, how are you?" I looked at him. I said, "How's your head, Mr. DeBoer?" He said, he took the hat off. He said, "It's all right. It's all right. Couple of stitches," because he had a thick head, Couple of stitches. I said, "Oh, good. I said, "Can you tell me one thing?" No. Then he said, "I don't hold nothing against you." He said, "I know what you did, why you did. It's all right." And I said, "Can you tell me one thing?" I said, "Would you have shot me?" He said, "Ah, of course, it's my job. Of course, I will shot you." So I felt better.
Yeah.
If I hadn't hit him, he would have
Yeah.
shot me.
Yeah.
So,
100%. Yeah. But those days it was war. It is what it is, and it was what it was.
yeah, that's
You
right.
know, I don't
Yeah.
have this great remorse and sorrow, and like I've served my time. I've done my punishment.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm not a victim, and I don't expect to be treated like a victim. But they
No,
weren't victims either.
Well, I got remorse about, and I genuine remorse because I've worked with Sykes about running the banks. I might have traumatised some people who didn't
Yes,
deserve it. And
I understand that.
I've got remorse about that.
I do
but-
understand that.
Yeah, but I've paid a heavy price for it, and I just feel that I remember when I was on a radio show about 5 years ago, and a woman rang up and said, "Yeah, my sister was in a bank that you ran in and traumatised. How do you feel about that?" Well, I don't think it was for me. I asked her what bank it was. It wasn't me, but it didn't matter. Somebody did it, and I said, "Well, if it was me, I apologise." I said, and I feel bad about it. I said, "But there's nothing I can do about it." I said, "Other than apologise to that lady, and I hope that she got compensation, because they all got compensation. They all got 20 grand out of my banks, and which fair enough. I didn't mind that, but I had to pay it. I had to pay them when I got out, and when I got out for the first 6 years, I was paying compensation, but they stopped it after about 6 years. So I accepted that, but when I said, "Oh, look, I've got remorse," she said, "Oh, you wouldn't know what remorse is," and so there's some people you're just not going to get it through to, and I accept that.
Yeah.
Not everybody's the same, and we are what we are, but we've been there, we've done this, we've come through, we've turned the corner. I'm back to where I was when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I feel good about myself. I'm going to say that I feel good about myself and what I'm doing, about the people I mix with, and I think that it's a pity I'm as old as I am, because I've got a lot to give at this stage.
I feel exactly the same for you, mate. I really do. I was excited to talk to you, because
Me too. Yeah, me
as a
too.
human being, I mean, we grew up in different areas, but we grew up in the same places.
Yeah, we did.
We've been down the same roads. A lot of the blokes that I grew up with, they're a lot older than me, are mates of yours. Like blokes I've been, like through the whole systems. I came from Sydney in '74. I went to prison up here in Long Bay, and I was up there with Wayne Newman, the Giant. I don't know if you remember Wayne. Wayne and I were pretty close. I like Wayne, and there's a bloke called Peter Crofts. He's dead now. They killed him. But everyone I talk about, they're dead.
Yeah.
So something happened, mate. We're blessed.
Yeah. Most of them are dead. That's right. Most of
The
them.
reason we're alive is that something greater than us, and I don't know what it is, has kept us here so we can carry our story and try to help other people, I believe.
I think that I believe it. I believe it, and I feel good about it.
Yeah, mate, I do. I'm excited for the future.
Me too. Yeah, me too.
Yeah. John Killick, mate, you're a gentleman. It's been lovely sharing this with you. I've really enjoyed it, John. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ron. I've enjoyed the chat. It's just like sitting and having a beer and having a chat. It's good.
That's it, mate. And I say to everybody, and I mean this sincerely, the greatest gift anyone can give you is their time.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
You can't make more of it.
Especially when you're older like us,
We appreciate it now, John. You know what I mean? The greatest gift we can be given is this wonderful stuff that we've been given, is experience, and we can only keep it by giving it away. Thank you, John Killick.
Thank you, Ron. And I might go and have a bath soon and create a couple of kids.
Go for it, mate. Don't let the water out. See you, buddy.
I solemnly swear that I will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.